Hey everyone, Brian Kelly here. Welcome to another episode of the Cultivate Church Planting Podcast. And now, let's get into the episode.
But I'm glad you're here, Rob, and wanted to talk through some of your experience, not only being a pastor, because you've been a pastor for a long time. You've not only planted churches yourself, you've sent out church plants from your church.
Yeah.
But speaking of your church, maybe we can talk about this for a few minutes, because you have a really cool story of a successful and godly, spirit-led transition from yourself as the senior pastor to Pastor Jason, who's there now at Calvary Vista.
Right.
So you want to just talk about that for a few minutes?
Yeah. So I became the pastor of Calvary Vista in 1996 and took over the church for Brian Bertison and pastored the church for 30 years. And then, it's kind of interesting. I turned 60 2 years ago. And when I turned 60, I said to my leadership team at the church, I said, I want us to start thinking about the next 10 years of, what God's going to do here. And I want to start thinking about who might replace me. And even though I felt like I could easily continue to pastor well into my 70s, maybe even my 80s, I just felt like for me, that wasn't what God was wanting me to do as far as being in the lead pastor role. So I basically said to them, here's what I want us to be praying about is I want us to take the next 3 years and be looking at, is there anybody inside of the church here that we feel like God is putting their hand on and saying, this is the guy. Yeah. And if he shows us that, then we'll plan on a transition period where I would transition out of the lead pastor role and into an executive pastor role at the church. Really had a heart for overseeing our staff and kind of doing the operations of the church. And if the Lord didn't show us that person in those first 3 years, then we'd take the next 3 years looking outside of the church at different people we had sent out and different people that I was connected with. And then, based on who that person was and what their experience was in being a senior pastor, that would determine how long the transition period would be. But what ended up happening was Jason Duff, who had been my youth pastor, he had also he went to Texas, pastored a church there, came back and was with us for another 4 years as a teaching pastor. Then we sent him to go and pastor a church that was out in the desert. They had a moral failure. Their pastor had a moral failure. He took that over, and God just did this incredible thing where it went from 800 people to like 3,500 people.
Dang.
Yeah, it was incredible. And but Jason's wife became deathly allergic.
Oh, yeah. I was talking with him. He visited here, actually, and he was telling me about that.
Deathly allergic to living in the desert. So she ended up moving and was living by us. And Jason was commuting back and forth, and it was like 2 to 3 hour drive. And it finally got to the point where it was just unsustainable.
Yeah, and you can't do that for long.
And I had always felt like if I could pick somebody to turn the church over to, Jason was my number one choice. Yeah. And I just feel like God orchestrated this whole thing because when he was out in the desert, he's loving it out there, loving living out there. God's doing this incredible work. I just thought, God's he was no longer on my radar as to even think about somebody to even be praying about, even though we were still in the initial first 3 years, we were looking inside. But when all this happened with his wife and her health, it orchestrated, the opportunity for them to come back. So, you said successful transition. We're about a month into it. So
well, so far so good,
it's going really, really good. Yeah.
How's the congregation taken to him?
Wonderfully.
Yeah.
And he was with us for 12 years.
Right.
And,
so people know him.
And he spoke often when I was gone. I would usually bring him in once or twice a year. Yeah. So our church has really, really known him. Yeah. And it's been really, really great. I'm actually really enjoying the role that I'm in and the things I'm getting to do, at the church, as well as getting the opportunity to come and do stuff like this.
Yeah, travel more.
A little bit more.
It's interesting because we usually talk about how to start a church here on the Cultivate podcast, but you have a great story of not how to churches don't end. Well, hopefully they don't.
Yeah.
But if they're not going to end, it means someone else has to, because we're not going to live forever.
Right.
And I was told once that you always have to be thinking about who's next.
Yeah.
Because God's church, it's not our church.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. We usually start about talk about the beginning, and then you're talking about this. Has it been hard to not be the face anymore, in a sense, like the visible face?
Not really, and I'll tell you why. I think, and this wasn't something that I consciously thought about when I started doing this. I wasn't consciously thinking about when I'm going to transition the church. But about 10 years ago, I slowly started to take my hands off of the reins of things in the church. And I slowly started to allow other people to take ownership of things. Another thing I started to do was early on, maybe the first 20 years, anytime I was gone, I would bring in somebody from the outside to come and preach. I'd bring in somebody well-known in our movement to come and speak to the body. Well, about 10 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer than that, I started having guys on my staff teach.
Okay.
And it was kind of amazing because I'd have a youth pastor speak, and the people in the church afterwards would be like, "That was amazing! Like that guy's teaching my junior hires.
Yeah,
I want to make sure and have my kids go to junior high."
Oh, I never thought about that.
It really, really worked in a great way, and it was interesting. I even started doing this when. Early on, if I went on a missions trip or I went on vacation, I got back on a Friday or a Saturday, I would always teach on that Sunday when I was gone. Yeah. But I'm preparing on the plane on the way home or on vacation. I'm getting up early in the morning, and I'm kind of taken away from my family. My brain wasn't there. My brain's on, I still got to get ready for Sunday.
Yeah.
Well, I had this epiphany where, why am I doing this? So I started having these guys teach on a Sunday where I was getting back on a Friday, but I was there. Yeah. I would always open up the service. I'd let people see me. Yeah. I'd do the announcements maybe, and then they would teach. And it was really funny because the first few times I did that, people in the church would be like, "Oh, you're taking the day off today." Like that's the only thing we do all week is preach,
You only have to work one day a week.
Yeah. But then I started getting this from people. "Oh, I love the way you're training up these young guys.
Yeah.
I love the way that you're giving them
up." They got the vision.
Got it. They caught the vision. If we were doing, let's say, a men's stake and study, I would usually be the MC of the night. We'd have a guest speaker, but I'd be the MC. I'd be the one up front. Yeah. And I slowly, again, I started having our guys that run that ministry. I'd be like, "I'll be there, but you guys be on the stage. You be on the platform." Yeah. And so I just slowly started taking my hands off the reins of a lot of different things in the church. So I was already becoming less and less the face of everything.
Right.
And I think that really, really helped me and also has helped the church.
So it's not just a short-term process. This has been going on, in your mind and in your strategy for a long time.
Which I think is really important. I think a pastor who is thinking about transition needs to start to prepare himself, first of all, financially.
Yeah.
Second, he has to start to prepare his own heart for when he's not going to be the guy. And that's how I started doing that. It's just like, I don't need to be the face of everything around here.
It's like if you're going to run a marathon, you want to get some long runs in, and you've been training for this.
And then you're also preparing the body.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. We did a pastors and wives conference last March. And during one of our breakout sessions, we were talking about this. And Daniel Fusco, who's up in Washington, who had a really great transition, he was saying this. He said this to all the guys. He said, "One of the things I see that senior pastors do when they transition is they let go of the reins, but but then afterwards they grab them again,
when it's going a little bit different than what they would do. They'd be like, hey, let me get that.
And when he said that, I thought, oh, this is interesting, because I've actually been letting go of the reins for about 10 years. And so I thought to myself, like, oh, this is good. I think that, and like I said, it wasn't a conscious thing. It wasn't something I read in a book, but it was something that just God was doing in my own heart. Was I need to get our people used to listening to other people, not just me. And I need to get our staff used to doing things that I don't need to be involved in, that they can run with it, and they don't have to be, completely dependent upon me for every single decision, and just letting people that God has brought to be a part of the ministry shine. And really, and this is what I really view the whole idea of being a servant leader is where we as the lead pastor are coming under the people that God has brought into our ministry, and we're coming under them to see how we can help encourage them, equip them, and support them to shine in what God has called them to do.
Yeah, that's a good word. Yeah, I've done that before, but I'm kind of like have been a serial church planter.
I know.
So, I know exactly what you're talking about, because as soon as we plant a church and we get it going, and our lifespan as myself as a senior pastor of the churches was around 4 to 5 years.
Right.
And so from this first to second year, I was always thinking about, all right, let's get this other guy rotated in. Let's think about, all the things you just said.
Yeah.
So now that I'm here and we don't have plans to go plant another church, we're kind of entering in that kind of second phase of church ministry from the church plant. It's people are really suspicious, because I have a bad reputation. It's like, hey, why is Justin teaching so much? Or why were you gone 2 Sundays in a row? You're not leaving, are you?
Yeah.
I swear to you, every time we get back from, a mission trip or a vacation, whatever it is, it's like, you're not leaving, are you?
Right.
Or, here's the question. It's like, oh, you went to the Dominican Republic we went on took the youth for a youth mission trip. Got back. How did you like it? And say, oh yeah, it was great there. You're not thinking about moving there, are you?
Yeah.
So I'm like, no.
Well, it's funny. It's the first thing I asked you at dinner last night was, so Brian, it's been about 5 years.
Exactly.
Are you thinking about the next?
I got to be really careful about how much of the reins but I love what you're saying, and I think it's a good word in thinking about, and our listeners who are maybe in that. You don't have to be, because I love what you said about you've got gas in the tank. You could go another 20 years.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
But that's not God's. I mean, we want the church to thrive.
Right.
Not just to make it after we're gone.
Yeah.
Because we're not the last pastor of these churches. Yeah. I'm not the last final pastor. There's someone else.
Yeah.
Unless the church is going to die, we don't want that. So you always have to be in preparation.
Yeah. And one of the things I'll just real quick mention about your situation that kind of excites me for you here in Bradenton is it seems like there's quite a few places in this general vicinity of Florida where you guys could be sending people out.
Yes.
And maybe, the Lord will have you enter into a new phase where you're not the planter, but you're the sender.
Yeah.
Which is really what Cultivate is all about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. I received that word. No, it's funny. The other day so now here at the church, we have 4 pastors.
Wow.
So I'm the senior pastor. Myself, Pilgrim, who's helping with the Bible college. Justin, who's the president of the Bible college, is also a pastor here at the church. And then Josiah, my assistant pastor, is here. And I was thinking about this. We got 4 pastors. We have 2 worship leaders, but 4 worship teams.
Wow, that's crazy.
So I was saying,
I think God's preparing you guys for something. Man.
I brought it up the other day at the pastor meeting. I'm like, hey guys, we have 4 pastors, 4 worship teams. 4, kind of areas of
solid
the
pastors.
city. Yeah, I know. Any one of them can have
been senior pastors.
Exactly. So I'm like, wait, we can't hoard all this to ourselves. We got to do something.
Yeah.
But we'll probably end up, like you said, sending out. Yeah. Let's get to church planting, because you planted a church. Tell us a little bit about your history at Calvary Vista in the early days and that first church plant that you went out to do.
So I came on staff there as a 21-year-old. and was on staff there for 7 years. I did basically all the youth ministry, junior high, high school, ended up doing young adults. Only did junior high for a year, did high school and young adults for about 6 years. And I really thought I was going to be there till the rapture, really.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until about my sixth year on staff that God started stirring my heart to go somewhere. And I had run into John Corson. He had spoke actually at a camp that we did, and he put this kind of bug in my ear, pray about coming to Oregon.
Yep.
And so through the course of a series of events, some people that were up in the northern part of Oregon reached out and said, hey, would you pray about coming here? And what was really interesting about that was, so doing college ministry about a year before this, as John put that bug in my ear about Oregon, I was looking at Oregon and just trying to a little study of Oregon. And I saw that Oregon State was a college town, Corvallis.
Yeah.
And so we went up, me and a friend of mine went up, and it was the furthest north in Oregon I had ever been. And I knew that it rained a lot up there. I was a Southern California beach guy. I was like, I'm not interested in going up to, but Corvallis, just God was pulling my heart. So we drove up there, fell in love with the place.
Yeah.
And just,
I've been there. It's beautiful.
yeah, I thought it was
Amazing.
incredible. Went to the campus, played basketball with some guys, got in some great conversations. I was really thinking, this is the place. And prior to going, I had called Applegate, Costa Mesa, and Crossroads and asked them if they knew of a church, a Calvary there. And they said, no, there's nothing there. It's wide open. So we went up there. Well, the weekend that we were there, we're in a hotel. And on Saturday, my friend opens up the newspaper. Remember those? And, and there's a half-page ad, and it says, Calvary Chapel has moved. And there was a guy who had been doing a home study. No one knew. And he was launching his home study into the community center. So we went and met with this guy. He was a guy who had come from another Calvary. He had been an ex-cop. And I went and met with him, and he, you know, graciously encouraged us to go somewhere else. and so I went home. I went home from there. And I told my pastor, Brian, I said, Corvallis was amazing. And I said, there's a guy there, he's starting out. And I don't want this to sound arrogant, but just in talking to him and sensing his lack of experience, I just had a feeling. I said, I don't think this is going to work out well. So Brian was like, well, just keep an eye on it. Well, what God did in using that was he used that to get me open to
the
going
idea
north. So about 45 minutes north of there was this little town called Silverton, and those were the people that reached out to me. So we drove up there, met with them, had kind of a crazy first meeting with them that left me kind of disillusioned. Like, I don't know if I can come. These people don't seem friendly. They seem kind of weird. And the plan was, this is interesting. The plan was that we would go, I was going to go back down to Southern Oregon where my wife had family, and we were going to stay with them. And then a week later, I was going to come up and meet with them again. And the first meeting we had, there was like 35 people there because they told a bunch of their friends. There's 6 families that were wanting to start this church. So after that, the second week we drive up, and I'm really disillusioned. I'm thinking like, how can I go up here? But in the midst of that, in between those 2 weeks, I had met with my former youth pastor, who was now pastoring a church in Southern Oregon, a guy named Rick Boya, who had been at Costa Mesa. And he told me, you need to have a burden. God needs to give you a burden. You need to have, he called it the Macedonia man principle, where God gives you a burden. And so I was praying, okay, Lord, give me a burden. So I went up to meet with that group of people that second week, and the Lord told me, don't teach a study. I just want you to have a time of worship and prayer.
Wow. Okay.
So now there's only 12 people. So
you already split the church.
The 20 other people that were there were like, no,
this isn't for us.
Yeah, exactly. I really won them over, so it was that great blessed subtraction. And so we just had a little bit of worship, and we just prayed. And as I'm listening to these people pray for their city, their little town, their community, their friends. God broke my heart.
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly I was burdened, and it was like God spoke to me right there and said, "You're coming."
Wow.
And so, Silverton's a little town of 4,000 people, and I'm from Orange County, California, where I grew up.
A little more than 3,000 or 4,000.
Yeah, exactly. And so we moved up, and God just worked. He gave. Now here's something interesting too. In those 6 families, 2 of them did foster care.
Okay.
So one of them had 10 kids, the other had 8.
Whoa.
So we
you already had a booming children's ministry.
We were starting the church with 12 adults and 25 kids. So we couldn't meet in a house. So we had to find a school. And the Lord opened up a school, and it was a really great school. And we met in that school for about 3.5 years, and then the Lord opened up the door for us to move.
So let me ask you some practical questions about when you first moved up there, because I love what you said about a burden. You got to have a burden. That's first and foremost, and that's from the Lord. In planning and, like we talked about earlier, strategy, one of the big things church planners think about and often ask is, how am I going to provide for myself and my family? So did you work bi-vocationally? Were you able to be supported by a mission? How did that work?
Yeah. So Calvary Vista, this is the way that they did their church planning. Now, in 1991, Joey Baran left in the spring to go to Virginia Beach. He went to Virginia Beach to go plant there. He was the first guy that Calvary Vista sent out. I was second. I went in September of that same year of 1991. And the way that they did it was they would send you out with 3 months salary and insurance.
Oh, okay. All right.
And what Brian...
Like a continuation of what you were already getting paid at the church.
Which wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
It was like $3,000. That was our salary. But back then that wasn't too bad.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
But
you could eat.
Yeah, we could eat.
Yeah.
And what Brian basically said was, go out, spend the first 2 months and see if, how God works and God provides. And if he provides in those 2 months, then great. If he doesn't, spend that last month looking for a job. So that was the plan. That was the way that we did things. That's also the way that I did when we started sending guys out. When I went back to Vista, we followed that same model. And in our case, after 2 months, we had enough people. We had about 60 people, and that they paid for my salary, my insurance, and the school that we were renting.
That's amazing.
So I didn't have to become bi-vocational.
Yeah, God provided.
But I'll tell you this, I actually wish I would have gotten a job. And here's why. I had time. With 60 people in the church, it wasn't like my phone was ringing off the hook.
Right.
It wasn't like I had...
You don't have a bunch of ministries started that you have to be involved in. And
it wasn't like I had a ton of counseling appointments to do. So if there was 2 things I would have done differently, it would have been this. One, I actually would have went and got a job somewhere, part-time job.
Yeah.
To simply be involved in the community, integrate with people. What I ended up doing is I went and enrolled in a class in college. I did.
Nice.
I went and enrolled in a couple classes in the community college for that very reason, to just be able to rub soldiers and integrate shoulders with unbelievers. I ended up in this one class, I met this couple, and I ended up doing premarital counseling with them and marrying them and leading them to the Lord, through that. But if I had it to do all over again, I think I would have gotten a part-time job.
Yeah, interesting.
For that purpose, it would have taken a little bit of burden off of the church, and it would have given me an opportunity. And I think it also would have given me a sense, and people that were coming to the church, that this guy's one of us.
Right.
He's out working in the community. The other thing I would have done differently was this. Going into it, I wanted to basically, had visions of grandeur. I wanted everything to be, like how it was at Vista. So we started immediately. We had Sunday morning, Wednesday night.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
You did it all.
We did it all. And men's group on Saturday. And, there's like 4 people at Wednesday night service.
Yeah.
And so I tell church planners now, don't do one thing really, really well.
Yeah, that's good.
One thing really, really well. Do Sundays really, really well. And don't start anything else until you're doing Sundays really, really well.
Yeah, that's a good word.
And use that other time to disciple, people, disciple men, your wife discipling women, but don't try to start all these different things, because the church can't sustain all of that at the very beginning.
Yeah, that's good. So having a burden and then going up, and your advice would be because you got to provide for yourself and your family, get at least a part-time job, if not a full-time work.
Yeah, even if you don't have to. Maybe you are supported, but it gives you, I think, a great
like at a coffee shop or something. Yeah. You're there, you see the people.
Yeah, exactly. You're meeting people. You're rubbing shoulders with people, and
but then you have to go to work.
That's okay. and let me tell you this: you have time.
Yeah, exactly.
You have time, and it helps you to manage your time.
Yeah,
and especially if you're only doing the Sunday, it's one message that you have to prepare.
Yeah. Well, even what you're saying about the 3-month thing, 3 months is not a lot of time. I mean, that's an anomaly that the Lord blessed at that rate.
Yeah.
For you, and we've seen it as well. But it's almost like you can do both. You can have the 3 months.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking this through in my mind. Have the 3 months from your sending church. We're going to pay you these months. And it would almost be something like use those 3 months not only to get the church started, but also to look for that job and see how you're going to do the next, 9 months of the year.
I mean, we didn't know anybody there, you know, and except these 6 families.
Yeah.
And we didn't really know them.
And their weird
either.
friends.
And their weird friends. And so I wish I did spend a lot of time, like I said, at the college. And that was a way I really had a heart to reach out to that age group and in starting. But I wish a part-time job I think it would have been helpful.
I've heard that, and I've actually read that before, that can be one of the most effective ways to start a church is to get a job, because by the nature of the job, depending on what industry it is, you're building relationships. You're like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? We started a new Bible study or whatever, and just the invites and all that. I
love Levi Lesko's model of what he did when he went up to Montana to start Fresh Life, because he went up there with 10 or 15 people, and they all got jobs.
Wow.
And as they took the first, I think, 6 months, and they were just working their jobs and meeting people. And then he started a study, and now all of these people, these 10 or 15 people, all had relationships with people. And so he started a Bible study, I think it was in a home. And the goal was all 15 people were going to invite somebody that they had connected with
at the workplace.
And they did. And they all came,
cool.
and that was the way that it started. I mean, it was a really, really cool strategy as far as sending a team out with the idea, we're going to go work, we're going to integrate, we're going to get to know people. We're not even going to start something for 4 or 5 or 6 months. And then as soon as we do, all of us have built relationships now with
you're ready.
people.
You got you're going to have a good start.
And people came.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so you were there in Oregon. How long were you there?
How long ago, or how long?
How long?
We were there for almost 5 years.
Okay, and then back to Vista?
Yeah, so then in 1996, Brian Broderson decided that God was calling him to go to London and start a church in London. And to my surprise, I was actually a shock, they asked me to come back.
Okay.
And so I came back in 1996, became the lead pastor there, and I pastored there for 30 years. And in the 30 years that I have been the lead pastor there, we have planted or helped send out, sometimes replant a couple times, 19 churches.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? I mean, we don't have to go into all the details, but what is your kind of thought towards getting these churches planted? Is it different in every case, or do you have like a template you use, or how do you do it?
Yes and no. Okay. So I will say this, it wasn't like that was the strategy. I love what you guys are doing in Cultivate, and that you kind of have a goal and a strategy. what God did with us and during that period was a lot by kind of osmosis. I think there was already a little bit of a culture there within the church of guys who kind of had this heart that wanted to go and plant. Because they'd seen Joey go out and myself go out.
You're the senior pastor. They saw you go out
and then
do
come
that.
back,
So.
And then their pastor, Brian pastored for 13 years there, and then he up and left and went to go plant. So it was stirring something, in people's heart. And one of the things that we did though that I think was really, really helpful, and I would really encourage guys to think about this. When I went out to go and plant the church in Oregon, I had done youth ministry for 7 years at Vista. I knew youth ministry well. To be honest, I knew nothing else about how the rest of the church functioned. I knew nothing about children's ministry. I knew nothing about sound ministry. I knew nothing about how the board ran. I never was involved in the men's ministry. Right. My wife was a little bit involved in women's ministry. I did help a little bit in our home fellowship, life group kind of ministries, but there's so much I did not know. And when I went to Oregon, I felt like I was at the mercy of other people who had ideas about how a children's ministry should go.
Because you didn't know.
Because I didn't know.
Yeah.
So one of the things that became our strategy was anybody that we were going to send out, we wanted to put them through over the course of a year, every single ministry in our church.
Oh,
so they would spend 3 months in children's ministry. They'd spend
they themselves personally would get involved in those ministries.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we told them
That's a good idea.
Yeah, we told them that we wanted them to know what we did and why we did it the way that we did it. Not so that they would necessarily do it that way, but that they would know this is how and why Calvary Vista does their children's ministry this way. So they would learn how to do sound. They would learn how to do children's ministry. They would learn about youth ministry. They'd spend time in the youth ministry. They would come to board meetings and see how our leadership meetings ran. And so with guys on our staff, that was real easy. It was really, really easy to just funnel them through those ministries. With guys who were not on our staff, and a lot of the guys that we sent out were guys who, they were a home group leader, or they were a guy that God was just stirring.
They're big part of your church, but they're not on the staff.
But they weren't on staff. Yeah. So this was something that we did with them. A year before, actually 2 years before they were going to go out, or a year and a half before they were going to go out, we would ask them to go to their employer. And it was interesting because some of these guys were working like in corporate places. And we told them this: go ask your employer if they'll let you take Tuesdays off.
Okay. So
that you can come to the church on Tuesday and be a part of our staff meeting, and then be a part of these, you can sit in on counseling appointments. And we told them this: we'll cover your salary for that day.
Oh, wow.
And we had several employers that allowed guys to do that. So they would spend a year coming to church every Tuesday and working at the church as we're funneling them through these ministries. And then a year or 6 months before we were going to send them out. So a year, just Tuesdays. Yeah. 6 months before we would send them out, we would bring them on staff full time.
Okay.
And cover them for that 6 months. And that would be what we were going to cover them for the 3 months that we sent them out.
Yeah.
So in that, they were getting like a crash course in that 6 month of everyday ministry, doing it at the church. And so the whole goal is when they went out, they had a really good working knowledge of every single aspect of our ministry and why we did what we did. And it was really, really successful.
Yeah, that sounds great.
We had a lot of guys that went out and really, really did well. And I think we actually planted like 22 churches in total. Of the 22, 19 are still going
great.
To this day.
That's a really
thriving. Good. Some of them have new pastors now.
Still going.
Yeah, but they're still going great.
Yeah, that's great, and it speaks to the success. I mean, obviously, it's the Lord. The Lord is the one who builds and sustains, but really preparing in advance. It's what we do with Cultivate. Is the preparation, the asking questions. What do you know? What don't you know?
Yeah.
Do you need help learning about ministry? This and that, and then connecting them with a church like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Just to actually do it.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing in theory, it's another thing in practice,
Right.
So,
And that's something I would really encourage churches that are thinking about, wanting to send out church planners is, how they're going to train them and to really think about putting them through all the different aspects. Because as a senior pastor, I think that it's really, really helpful that how children's ministry works, and not that you're going to micromanage it, but
you should have an idea of what's going on.
And you're able to cast a good vision that way.
Yeah.
Like, here, this is what I want the children's ministry to be like. These are the things that I want this to be the focus. These are the things that I want the youth ministry to focus on, rather than just like, oh, you want to do youth? Great, go for it.
Yeah, good luck. I love what you're talking about here, because as you were describing what you do as a church to send out these church planners, it's so different from so many churches. We've mentioned this on the show before, where it's kind of like if someone comes up to me or to you, lead pastor, and says, hey, I'm really praying about planting a church. I want to go out and plant a church. Most of the time what they'll get is, I'd really love for you to do that, because in the pastor's mind, let's just be honest, they're thinking, this guy's leaving. I'm not going to waste any more time on this guy.
Yeah.
He's going to do his own thing. So lay hands on them, bring them up on stage. They're going to plant a church. Go with God.
No.
See you later.
Not the right approach. I'll just say, not the right approach. No, we need to invest.
Yeah, because you're talking about investment, not only with money, but with your time. And
And you know what? I'll tell you this. So I had a guy, another Calvary pastor in our community. He had the same worship pastor for 20 years, same youth guy for 15 years, same assistants for long-term assistants. And he watched all these guys, because I would have a youth guy. I mean, we basically had guys coming to our church for this reason. Like, I feel called to go plant.
Yeah.
And I want to be sent
go
out
to
from
Rob's
here.
church.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they came with that heart. And I would say to a high school guy, I want you to give me 4 years, because I want you to see a whole class through.
Yeah.
I'd say to a junior high guy, I want you to give me 3 years, because I want you to see a junior high class through. And a lot of our guys that we sent out they came as youth guys. And so, but we had some other guys. Our first church plant was actually here in Florida. We sent out John Randall to come and plant Calvary Brandon. And John, he had been my college pastor and one of our worship guys for a year. And he had already felt this stirring. And then the Lord led him here. And then the guy who's the pastor there now, Mark Orozco, he was my junior high pastor. And God had stirred his heart after a couple of years of John being down here to come and help John. And then he ended up moving here and took over, for John. But the thing is this guy's watching all of these guys leave. Every 4 years or so. And he asked me one day, he's like, does that ever bug you?
Yeah.
Like you've had
you're
a
losing.
lot of...
They think it's like you're losing something.
Yeah.
You're losing something.
Yeah, and you've lost some great guys.
Yeah.
And I said to him, you know what? His name was Mike. I said, you know what, Mike? When it first started happening, it did bother me a little bit, because they were great guys, and it was always hard trying to find the right guy to fill their place. But then I started thinking of it differently, and I thought, if John hadn't left, it wouldn't have opened up the door for Charlie Campbell to become our college pastor.
Right.
And if, this guy didn't leave, it wouldn't have opened up the door for Evan Wickham to come and be our junior high guy. And if that guy didn't leave, it wouldn't have opened up the door for Jason Duff to become my high school pastor.
So you see, and Pilgrim and I talked about this on a previous episode. Whenever you send out your best, God always brings, more.
Yeah.
So,
and so I was at a pastor's meeting in our area just the other day, last Tuesday, and there was 10 or 11 guys there, and it was a senior pastor's meeting. And 4 of the guys in the circle were guys who had been on staff with me.
Wow.
Who are all now
great.
Senior pastors. And one of the guys married a girl who was in my youth group. And I'm looking around and going, this is amazing. Like, our church has a stamp on even San Diego. And some of them didn't start there, but they've ended up there.
But when you hold on too tightly, you're not going to get that stamp. You're not going to have the impact that you want to have.
Yeah.
We think in such short, small terms.
We do.
And we don't see the big picture.
Yeah.
We got to start seeing the big pictures.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah. Rob, thanks.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, say one more thing. Yeah.
Yeah, one last thing. So here's what's interesting. 20 years, 19 church plants. The last 10, we've only done 1.
Wow.
And here's what was interesting about that. Over the last 10, I had guys that were coming on staff, and some of them came on staff with a sense and a heart of like, yeah, I want to go plant one day, but they since have changed their mind.
Okay.
They're like, no, I'd rather stay here. So over the last 10 years, our focus has shifted to now coming alongside church planners and churches that already exist. We've done a couple of replants in New Zealand, and so that's been a focus. But what's interesting now, because all of this was organic, it wasn't like, okay, we're going to be a church planting church.
Yeah, for these 20 years, we're going to be a church planting church.
It was something God did.
Yeah, that's a good word.
And now what's interesting is I have 2 young guys on staff right now who both want to be senior pastors. And I think they're going to both be.
Yeah.
I think in the next probably 4 or 5 years, we'll be sending both of them out to go and plant. And I feel like, okay, God's starting to do something.
Do it again.
But 10 years, our focus had been on supporting, coming alongside, helping replant existing churches. And again, it's just like, okay, this is how God is leading us right now.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that has been a little bit of a challenge in all of that is that it's gotten harder to church plant because of how expensive it costs.
Yeah, there's a lot more challenges.
We could send somebody out, pay them $3,000 a month, and they'd survive. We could send somebody to go church plant in Europe and pay them $500 a month, and they'd live like kings. In different places
times have changed
in the world, but times have changed. So it's caused us to become a lot more strategic. And now when we send guys to other countries, they have to have several people come alongside of them to support them.
It's got to be more than just one church or one person.
And we won't send them until they have that.
Yeah.
Until they have that in place, they have their insurance in place. We're going to be a part of their sending, and we're going to be a part of their support, but we can't be the full thing anymore. For a long time with some of our missionaries and church planners we sent out, it was like you've heard of B of A? Well, this was B of V. We were the Calvary Vista, We can't do that anymore, And so times have changed. It's caused us to change a bit in how we're doing. And so I feel like, there's going to be some more church plants in our future, probably not as many as frequent, but there will be, and kind of, I believe in, like I said earlier, do one thing well. Yeah. Instead of trying to do a bunch of, do one thing well. And so, So I just one other little tidbit.
Yeah, we have. Well, it's seasons. It's seasons of. I mean, you got seasons of revival where it's just like you can't keep people away, kind of thing, and you got seasons of church planting. It doesn't mean that God doesn't want to always save or that God doesn't want to always church plant. Yeah. It's just different seasons. Yeah. And our listeners might be in that season, like, wow, he can do 19 churches in 20 years. I can't even do 1 in 10. Well, he only did 1 in 10. Yeah. So there you go.
Right. Exactly.
The question is, what's God doing?
Exactly.
And what does God want us to do?
And getting on the same page with things. So.
Yep. Rob, thanks so much for being with us today. It's
thanks
good,
for having me.
Insightful. So
good. Appreciate it.